The Trainer 1-to-1 podcast is proudly sponsored by Financial Planning Matters. We recently recorded a latest episode with the founder of Financial Planning Matters, Niall O'Connor. In the episode, we talk about a couple of the basics of what the services they provide do, ways to get in contact, and just various stories about managing your financial future. Here is the thumbnail, and you can find the link for that video in the show notes below. The following is a conversation with Ken Kiernan. Ken is the current manager for the Bohemians women's senior team and has had a previous stint at Athlone as assistant manager where they won the FAI Cup last year. In the conversation today, we speak about Ken's previous experiences within Irish football, starting from playing with Wes Houlihan in the Foss course, all the way to his coaching at Shelbourne at the under-15 level, where he was shadowing Damien Duff's under-17 team, as well as various other coaching stints along the way. This is an open conversation with a new up-and-coming manager in his first senior managerial position. And I think it gives some good insight into how to bleed in younger players into what has been previously a more senior dominant environment within the Women's National League. And it's interesting to see the opinions of what new managers are thinking coming into the system with new formations, different ways of managing players, and just the little bits of experience that he has seen over the last couple of weeks. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Make sure to leave anywhere to a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe and like the video if you enjoy this content. We hope you enjoy. But obviously you are now with Bohemians in the women's section in the senior team. But I think a really good place to start, because of I think how crazy your last couple of years has been, is to actually take us all the way back. Where did you start with football? Where did the love of it come from? Anything that would give us a little bit of insight into how this journey started.
Yeah, so when I was, I suppose, starting off, I was local grassroots team in Priorswood. Moved out of Priorswood, moved up to Athlone and joined St. Paul's. So St. Paul's would have been a kind of like, a mid-table BDSL Premier team, kind of an up-and-coming club at the time, good senior setup. Played with some really good players in the club at the time. Stephen Cluxon was in the team actually.
Oh yeah.
Alan Keeley, Lord Reston, he was in the team. Some really good footballers. So that's where I started. Got the bug for it. Just the same thing, street football, like all the other lads that have played. Boxes, trainer and all that kind of stuff. That's all we done. Like, it was just football on the green. There was 2 trees like every other green in the middle of the estate, and we just football till 11 o'clock at night. And then I suppose after that, then as I was getting older, there was a Foss course that I joined. It was ran by Billy Young, who was obviously a Bowes legend. And then the lead mentor was Stephen Henderson. So he was probably a really big influence on me at the time. And then Dennis Hoyland was involved. So Dennis actually runs the TY course now, and he's just this season gone. They just implemented a girls' transition year course. Mm-hmm. So from a kind of a young age, I was around people that I didn't realise were actually going to have an impact on me as I was going through coaching at other junctions in my life. Mm-hmm. And through the Foss course, like some fantastic footballers, and it was just a brilliant year. I listened to Foxy's one, and he was talking about how influential it can be and how helpful it can be to young players who maybe aren't going to be footballers, and teach them kind of life skills and stuff like that. And that's what we got in the course off Billy and Dennis and Stephen, so it was brilliant.
You always bought into the idea of what football could do for your life, or was it a case where you were trying to juggle football and then a potential other career path as well?
Oh, it was I just come out of my leaving cert, so I was it was just a great time to have a year of just football. It was I was probably under no illusion that I wasn't going to play a high level of the League of Ireland or become a professional footballer, but the modules of coaching and stuff like that on the course really appealed to me. So that coincided with, obviously, I was playing a bit of reserve football for Shell at the time. It was like a reserve team, and Mick Neville was the manager, and Mick was a really good family friend, so he gave me a bag of balls and bibs, and when I was 19 I took an under 10s team in Shells, because he was, I think at the time he was also the academy director. So, you know, the stuff we were picking up on the course and the fast course, was able to implement it straight away with a team, like, which, you know, I hadn't planned on doing that, and then I realised, like, Jesus, actually, I enjoy this, like. But there was players on the course, like Wes Houlihan was on the course and stuff like that, and Will McDonough, he went over to Carlisle, I think, but Wes, and then there was just so many players that were just really, really talented footballers, and like some of the matches, like at the time, the senior team trained in the sports link as well, like, so we'd play matches against the first team, and like it was just brilliant, like, you know. Richie Foran was in the team at the time as well, and you were looking at players like Richie and Wes that you knew they had more potential, and Mick would have taken like Richie under his wing, and you could see him doing like individual stuff with him, and then obviously he went off and done a bit more in Scotland and stuff. But there was players just around the place, like I think Jim Crawford had just come back from Newcastle, I think, at the time, and like there was, like, at the time the players were just, it was just brilliant to be, it was a brilliant place to be, like, you know.
Outrageous, yeah. I think one question I had was, like, you mentioned obviously a lot of really cool mentors, and then obviously a lot of top players. Like, do you have any recollection of, like, what were the main takeaways from the mentors that you had, and what were the main takeaways from the top players, and where does that kind of fit in today with your own coaching?
I think, like, when you are looking at players like Wes, and you're seeing the individual ability that he had, like, and the ball mastery he had, and you realise that, you know, when you were trying to perfect it and help each other perfect on the course, he just had this natural, innate ability. So, like, but you knew that you could still, like, you could still see people perfecting their skills on the course, but he would be like, you know, the way when you're doing something and you're not really sure if you can do the skill yourself, and you get the boy who can. The lads were always like, Wes, go and show the outside cut, or go and show the Cruyff turn, or whatever. So, like, he would have been someone that you were just kind of always going, Christ, like, that's the way I want players to play, like, with that bravery. And that was what was always encouraged by Stephen and Dennis on the course, and John O'Priorsman was on the course as well at the time, and he was just signed from Kilkenny to Shells, and a real, like, kind of attack-minded centre midfielder. I think he'd scored like 10 or 12 goals for Kilkenny at the time, and then Shells signed him. I'm nearly sure it was Kilkenny to Shells. So they were just kind of like, it was like really like attack-minded. Hendo used to get in goal, and like he just wanted you to try and score against him, and the matches were just like end to end, and it was just get up to the ball, take players on, and it was very much about that at the time, like, and that's probably, you know, ended up sculpting the way I kind of like to design sessions and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, the combination of the mentors and the players, with all the bravery, the attack mindset, and I suppose if anybody was to like articulate what's like the ideal attacking player in an Irish jersey, they'd always say Wes Houlihan at this stage. So I think being even in and around the flesh of it, it's going to have to rub off somewhere, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, as I said, it just helped you kind of at the time. It's kind of unconsciously you're just thinking about this, but because we used to have to put training sessions on to, you know, to get your badges, like, I think it went up to the old B license on it. So we were designing sessions that we wanted to play in. So we're not going to weigh ourselves. You know the way yeah, like, so like tonight I'm just coming from training tonight, and we're working on some defensive functions and stuff like that. And you're trying to put elements of it in so that when the players do defend really well, that they're also, you know, attacking with the ball. So like everything we do, or everything I've done, and everything any of the coaches I've been involved with have done, has always ended up with, you know, even if we're working on defensive principles, that the player gets an opportunity to attack once they've, you know, defended well. You know.
Is there anything then from your principles when you first began coaching? You've kind of probably answered with the attacking side of things, but is there anything you've done back then for your first kind of couple of years coaching that is still a foundation now?
Yeah, well, look, the player being able to receive the ball and take pressure from the side and from behind, because ultimately that's where pressure tends to come from. So always kind of designing sessions where players have to, you know, problem solve individually, you know, to get beyond another player. So like that's something that we try to stick to, you know, in at least one part of every session we do. You know, with every coach I've worked with, like, so that like that kind of individual ability to take a player on and receive the ball and shield and protect and wriggle and you know get away from a player. Like that's really fundamentally, I think that's really the most important thing that you can teach a player.
And it's applicable really from the under 10s group you took in the first step coaching to working with a senior team, I suppose.
But even now, like there's a lot of really good players, but you can still help them improve. Like we've wingers now that we're showing them like a Ronaldo chop or whatever it is, like, and you're getting them to perfect in the training session. Then they might never have done that. They might never have been coached that particular maneuver, and then they're working on it and they're working on it, and then you see it happen in a game, and you're giving them a moment when it might happen, and then like so, I remember Wenger saying something about once you've learned what you've learned when you're 14, and boy, I see players being able to take on that kind of stuff and learn and improve at 30.
Yeah, that's always been a weird one, isn't it? That idea that you're kind of done by a certain age, or I get what they mean. It's like the younger you do it,
the better. New tricks, sort of thing.
Yeah, but like the same. We've seen players much older than that learn something that they couldn't do.
Yeah. Well, like obviously, coaching in Shells, like got the opportunity. We were with the 15s and got the opportunity to kind of shadow Luke and Damien at the 17s. So like, you were looking at him just transforming players, like, and it was just down to the session design, it was like the session was actually dictating the coaching points, you know what I mean, at times, like just the way he would design sessions. So that was like, I fully agree, like, you look at Mark Hoyle in the middle of the park for Shells, like, functioning player up in Finn Harps, and now he's like just transformed. So
what did you like about those sessions when you were observing the 17s?
Just the intensity that the players played, and just the simple messages that they were constantly repeating all the time, over and over again. Like, no single passes, sharp angles. It was just, the sessions were just designed so well to just get the players really comfortable on the ball. So when Damien came in, and I was just there every session, like, we trained after them, so I'd get there before. Yeah. And then I just like, do you need me to collect balls? Do you need me to do anything? And then it just kind of went from there. You gained a bit of trust, and then you'd step in, because obviously, like, at the time Luke was still training and stuff like that. So there was the odd night he would need a hand. Like, so he then, once he kind of trusted you, got an opportunity to. He'd send you the session, and then he'd ask you to take the warm up, and it was just like it was brilliant. It was brilliant learning curve for me,
Could you tell from that, watching them sessions, that he was going to go on and coach more first team level and do what he's doing now? Essentially, could you see it then?
Yeah, like, he had been in Celtic and stuff like that at that stage. So he was doing stuff with the 17s group that it was top level stuff, like, it was really top level stuff. But then he would always want your opinion on things as well, like, I remember he was doing a box transfer game. It's like a 4-box game, so reds and reds, yellows and yellows, yellows play the yellows, opposite box presses the opposite box, like. And he was talking about the angles, and he's talking about shifting and playing to the back foot and playing front foot passing and all that kind of stuff. And then he just looked at me and he was just like, "Ken, anything to add?" And I was like, "No." It's like, wow. And I could feel myself sinking into the ground, and all the lads looked at me, like David Torre, Chad Hidiki, Gavin Hodgkins, and I'm like, right, I know it's just a transfer game, but put yourself on the pitch. Like, this could be a short corner, so the ball is being shifted out to you. Now you're looking to shift the ball into the centre of the pitch for your teammate to make a forward run and strike the ball. And he just looked at me and just went, and then I was like, yeah. But that's what it was. Like, he was just, it was just getting other opinions on moments. Like, he never felt like he felt he knew it all either. Like, and he was preaching. He was always wanted to know your opinion and stuff like that. And even now, like, just he'd always be the first to shoot you a message and say, like, "Well done on the Bows job, well done on Athlone, and how's things going," and stuff like that. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, I've never met him, but I think he comes across great on various different interview processes. Just, I think one thing that's always stood out to me is just how authentic he is, even from like the Shells interviews, even when like he was just starting to stop playing. Like he would have been the big player when we were younger, obviously watching football. So it was pretty cool to see that transition and then know that, you know, he obviously did a great work being done for one of our League of Ireland clubs, you know, in that sense. When did the big shift occur for you when it comes to working with, you know, and to be fair, I think from what we always say as well, like the foundation's always in the grassroots, but when did you really kick into the League of Ireland from Shells 15s to the senior setups?
So I was with the Shells boys 15s, and then I moved across to the girls 17s. So I was looking for kind of a bit of a. My two daughters were playing, and they were in the academy, and I felt I could kind of maybe give a hand. Like I was happy to go into any team, to be honest with you, and that's something that I think that's why I'll probably always be involved in football, because it doesn't. You know, it's brilliant being a senior manager, and I'm so privileged and stuff like that. But if I had to go back to any, you know, the 10s or 11s or 12s, I think I'd be okay with that. You know, I'm just happy to help players, and but after the 15s and into the 17s, with a season and a half with the 17s girls, and like a lot of crazy stuff happened. There was a lot of girls that became, you know, internationals from 15 schools, 16, 17s. They were jumping up and stuff, and in a short space of time, we just created a kind of a really kind of like high standard team, and like they were just excellent. It was really done some really good recruitment, brought some unbelievable players into the club, and like in a short space of time kind of got them ready for the Shells senior team, like, you know. So after that, the second season with the 17s, I was asked to go into Athlone with Ciaran. So it was I had been reaching out to different managers to go in and watch sessions and stuff like. So I'd gone into Rovers. Collie O'Neill was, you know, happy to take me in. Went in, and Ciaran Ryan was with him at the time, who was with Bray in our year at 15. So they were just delighted to have you in and observe. So went in and watched their sessions, and I was always like reaching out to managers to go and watch and observe and stuff like that. And then I'd heard Ciaran got the job, so I just sent him a message, asked him could I come in and watch the sessions, but I didn't realise he kind of hadn't settled in properly at the time, and he was still looking for somebody. So I met him, and we just got to talking, and he was like, within 30 minutes, he was like, would you like to come in and take the job and be involved? And I was kind of like, what? I was the coach of the 17s, like, and next of all, this was a genuine option.
Right.
So yeah, I had spoke to a couple of people about it, and it was really difficult because we were halfway through the season with the girls, and at the start of that second season, I had a couple of options to go to a couple of men's teams and senior women's teams, but a lot of the girls had just got broken into the international setup, and I felt that it was important that I stayed with them and through the off season and kind of help them prepare and stuff like that. And I'd recruit players, and I'd recruited, you know. So we stayed in the first half of the season, and then that kind of coincided with Rory coming into the club. So he was a good few months in, and then once I spoke to him, and we'd kind of lined someone else up that we knew was going to look after the players really, really well, and now Owen is the senior manager. So like a lot of things fell into place. Like I was just delighted that the players were with somebody that was going to really drive them on for the rest of the season, and obviously Rory was there looking after things then as well. But then just the opportunity to get involved with Athlone and work with Ciaran as well was huge. It was really, really huge.
I don't think players understand quite how much goes into the decision of like that leaving, where you wanted to make sure that the environment was still what you had sold to the players, essentially, especially from a recruitment point of view. Sometimes I suppose football can be like that, where people can jump really quickly, and at the end of the day, and they say to the players all the time, it's your career at the end of the day, or it's your progressions, and the players sometimes need to be selfish with that, and coaches in the same breath can also be selfish with that, or should be. Like that first team role is I would say nearly impossible at times to turn down. But I don't think players sometimes understand how much you can still put into the what's going to happen after you're gone, so to speak, and like that, make sure the environment is as close to what you wanted it to be as possible for the girl is actually quite important, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it was, we had gone up to North to play in the Super Cup. It coincided with the conversation with Ciaran coincided with the girls being up at the Super Cup. So we went up and they got to one of the finals, and actually told the players up there that I was leaving the day before the final. And it was a really, really bizarre. It was like, when do you tell the players that you're stepping away?
Yeah.
And I don't think a coach or a manager that was like, you know, because we fantastic side, and there was a lot of trust between the parents and me and players that we brought in and stuff. So it was really important that it was left right. If I didn't think it was going to be left right, I actually wouldn't have. I wouldn't have left. If I didn't know that Rory and, you know, Owen obviously was going to come in, and then Craig, who was with me now, was staying. But when we told the players, they were playing the final the next day, and there was a lot of tears. Like, it was really, like, it was even thinking of it now. And how I explained to the girls was that I had said that there was, as you said, the chances don't come around very often, and I knew a lot of the girls were actually really close to senior self. So I was saying, like, this is a really good opportunity for me to actually get to work with you again. Yeah. Because they were so close to the senior team. And it didn't necessarily mean in Shells, or, you know, it could have been anywhere in Dublin or Leinster, for that matter. So a lot of tears, a lot of emotion, and when I explained to them, like, this is I'm doing this so I can actually get to work with you again, and possibly in the short term, you know, I can get to work with you again. So they went out and played the final, and then even being able, because normally if you say you're leaving, you meet them at a training session and then you go and you're gone.
It's nice to do it in a final though, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't even necessarily by design. It was just, we spoke and I said, like, it's probably a good time actually to do it now.
Yeah.
And explain it to them now, and then we had the next day, and then it was the best it could possibly be, you know.
From your time in the underage football, how do I word this? My questions went straight man. No, I got it back. Do you know your questions going? And you put it back in.
If you go for a brain fart trying to find a better way to ask a question, it'll just leave your head.
Really?
It's always better to ask it.
Working at 17s, and I'm always interested in coaches' opinions on this, because it can be something that's kind of debated, I suppose. How did you balance kind of development, winning? Do you see them as like interlinked at that kind of 17s level, or is there one you would prioritise at certain stages of the season, or what way do you look at that?
Yeah, look, I think back to the session design and making things competitive in training sessions, and then like a winner and a loser in training sessions all the way through the week. Everything we done was like competitive, and you're trying to create that mindset of, you know, teaching them to win. So teaching them to win in every practice all the way through, and then I would never speak about winning on match day. I would never speak about beating an opponent, you know, and I still don't really do it even at senior. We just speak about, you know, our principles, you know, what we're going to do that's positive, areas we feel we can expose the opposition team in terms of whether it's their setup, whether it's, you know, a right foot left centre back or whatever. So yeah, like, I didn't really, you know, it was never really, we never really spoke about, I never really speak about winning football matches. That, I kind of contradict myself there, because we create scenarios where they have to win and lose in training sessions. But in terms of on match day, it was more about like the process of, if we do this, we can score, not we can beat the opposition team.
Yeah.
You know that kind of way?
Yeah, I get it.
It was saying is one thing. I think if players actually do it every single day, I mean, everybody wants to win. I haven't come across a high level footballer that doesn't want to win. So I always find it very, like, I suppose it's kind of like what we said about Damien Duff though, and Luke and all. Like, what's the word?
Subliminal.
Yes, small messages are very good sometimes to reiterate how important things are. Is winning in that category? I'm not sure. Like, I think it's kind of just more like a foundation of football in general, you know, which is always very interesting. One thing I know about you, though, Ken, even just with the conversation, is you're a very proactive guy. Like, every opportunity that's come is from reaching out to people, being very open and transparent with just people in the network. How do you deal with players on a day-to-day basis? Is that also very transparent, very open? Do you like players to be proactive?
Yeah. Even now with the senior team now, we would have done some individual finishing practices, like, and we'd be asking the players, okay, so in the system we play now, where do you find the ball coming towards you? So how do we replicate that now for you? Because we play a 3-5-2, or well, we have been playing 3. Now we can play in our system mid game, and it's fine. So, like, trying to involve the players in the process of, again, designing the training sessions that are going to get them the outcomes that they're looking for, depending on their position, you know. So
very interesting. And taking us back to Athlone, there was obviously a lot of good work done there. What did you think went very well at Athlone? What do you think didn't go very well? And what have you taken from those learnings into Bohemians now?
What went well?
Winning the cup's obviously huge.
I didn't want to say that.
He said it's not about winning.
Well, no,
He said it.
It is, but it's a huge landmark. But to get to a cup final and to win it, that's obviously a huge achievement. But there's a lot more than lifting the trophy, like all the work that's done before. So on the training ground, what did you guys do well? What did the players do well? Like, all those little things obviously add up, you know?
Yeah, like, as I say, obviously Ciaran was the manager, so Ciaran drove what he was looking for, and I added to it, you know, in my style. So, like, we used to have, I'd drive to Ciaran's house in Kilduff, and then we drive from Kilduff to Athlone, you know, 3 days a week. So the conversations in the car on the way up, and then we'd always land an hour and a half before the players would come in. So we just bounced so much stuff off each other. So, like, it was just brilliant. And then getting to the venue, designing the session, like, we'd have the sessions in mind, but then, like, tweaking things, like, that went really well. That was very, very condensed. It was very intense. There was only so many games till the end of the season. Do you know what I mean? There was only so many league games left, and then the cup was there, you know, to get to the final. So, you know, in Ciaran's mind as the manager, that was, you know, a real tangible thing that could be achieved, especially with the players that we had. Like, fantastic players. And then he signed a really good goalkeeper that we'd been working with, Ken, like, so he brought Katie in. There was a brilliant group in the under 17s and under 19s that came in, and, you know, over the course of the first few weeks came in. That was brilliant, actually, because, like, by the time our season finished, I think 5 of the girls were named in the Irish 19s, and I think only Katie had been in the 19s. So 4 of the Athlone girls and Katie. Yeah. So, like, the girls weren't, like, it was just brilliant, you know what I mean? And it was down to them training with the senior players, like, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. You know?
That's one big advantage. I asked that to Rory Kirk when he was on as well. Like, I think Ireland have a huge competitive advantage over other countries because of the exposure younger players get into senior environments. Like, obviously, you've seen a lot of top players come from Shells through the senior environments. You've managed players in Athlone. You're also managing a lot of, you know, top young players in Bows. How have you found that transition of bringing younger players into senior environments?
Yeah, it's tricky because, like, even at under 17s, there's 3 age groups in the girls playing at under 17s because they don't have 15, 17s, 19s. So you could have a 15-year-old that could easily, you know, technically and tactically play at senior level, but socially, it's just not fair, you know.
Yeah.
And because there's more of an element of winning, and she's coming from an element of development where you're encouraging them to be competitive, but then all of a sudden there's a real kind of an impact if the team doesn't win. So not all players are ready for that, although, like, tactically and technically they might be. With boys, it's possibly a little bit different. Boys, probably more boys at 16, 17, are ready to go in and just kind of get on with it, I find. With the girls, like, the social side of it is, psychologically, it's a big step up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of big jumps quickly for girls, like that was the other thing as well. Like when we got to the final, obviously we were playing Shelbourne, and I coached Hannah and Rebecca, who played in the final, and we went to penalties, and these two girls, like, in front of like thousands of players or people, fans, and they step up and take penalties, and so I'm like standing there, having worked with these two girls for, signed Hannah into Shells, signed Rebecca from Peamount into Shells, and I'm sweating, like genuinely sweating, like they're stepping up to take a penalty. Like I don't know who's taking the penalties for Shells, and like I'm going, this is bonkers. Literally like 10, 12 weeks ago, I've been coaching these two girls at the Super Cup at an under 17s tournament. Now I'm in Tal Stadium in the FAI Cup final, and two of the girls that I've signed are now taking penalties against you. So the point I'm making is for young up-and-coming female footballers, things can happen really quickly.
Yeah, that's it.
Like really, really quickly. And people, you need good people around those players to support them, and you need good players around them. So like, this weekend gone, we've Ava Brennan and Savannah Kane, they both score in the All-Ireland Cup, like. But you've got players like Lisa Murphy, Rachel Kelly, these are around, Tegan Woody, these are women that are around the younger girls, keeping their feet on the ground, making them feel relaxed, like there's no pressure on you here, just go out and enjoy the game. And you need people like that, and you need the parents to be really aware and conscious of, don't be worried if they're not in every starting team or if they're in every squad. Like, it's okay if they, are in the match day squad but they play with the 19s the next day, So a lot of things can happen really quickly at the moment and it is a very young league,
Because it's so young, you see so many other peers who are making jumps that maybe someone's daughter might not be ready for at that moment. I think because there is a lot of players, and we would see them in our sessions, who are like kind of 15, 16, 17, and they're technically better than players I've seen who are 25, 26. But the biggest thing to get to senior football is personality, psychological, that kind of being ready for that sort of things. Because there's so many players who are good technically and maybe tactically. It's definitely that kind of physical, personality, psychological step that is different for everyone. Some people make it at 16, like you said. Some people might not make it till they're 21, 22.
And some of them, you're thinking they're ready and you want to help them to support them, and you just have to, as a coach and a manager, like we've got young players in the team, like, we finished the game against Athlone, I think, with two 16-year-olds and a 17-year-old on the pitch, and they're the FAI Cup winners. So I suppose that's something that we also want to do in Bohemians is promote young players at the right time and give them those opportunities, because it will, if they're ready for it, as we said, psychologically, it will improve them massively, really quickly. So it's only when you look at, so I've gone to a lot of international, games and stuff, and when you go and watch, say, them, play in Switzerland or France, the girls are playing with the boys all the way up till they're like 15, so. And now, the FA have introduced where the girls can play, and and I've already seen, young girl McGuan from Treaty. She was away with the Treaty under 14s in Sunderland, and obviously, but she, I'm sure, is involved with the senior women's team as well. But she's getting the best of both worlds. Like, she's being stretched playing with the boys, so she's come in from, say, Pike Rovers, and probably a lot of our team have come into the Treaty team, and they're allowing her then, a player like her, to play another year and to get the benefits of that. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, they definitely have an advantage over potentially what I can imagine UK academy sides would be like in the women's game. Obviously, with that as well, like, you could see, when you've got like KVK, for example, would be arguably in the top 20 players in the world. I would have to say, like, a similar upbringing, even to what the culture is like now in the league. Obviously, it's taken leaps and bounds forward in terms of professionalism, but really at the core of it, if you looked at her as a young player, the exposure that she got, even with Raheny and to Shells, and then making her way across to Arsenal and then the loan to Glasgow, like it is quite a similar progression. It'd be very interesting to see now in the next 5 to 10 years, like where a lot of the top 19s players be. I'm hoping that they'll be able to make the bigger jump versus what a lot of the boys at 19s and 21s are currently making. So what I mean by that is actually getting into the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, potentially Europe as well, versus, you know, competing in League 1 and League 2, which of course by any means is an excellent feat, but to play really in the top 4 clubs, like Damien Duff was at Chelsea, Roy Keane at United, that's what we're looking for in the women's as well.
Yeah, and I think like the way the academy structure is set up now, I think that will allow the players to be physically prepared as well, better, because, you know, only speak about ourselves now in bowls, like the girls are in, the 17s are in the gym before the session starts, and you know, they're working with an S&C coach, so physically they're getting prepared properly. And when you watch the international under 17 say play France last season, the French are so quick, they're so physically strong, physically they're so well prepared. So I think with more of that coming into the league at a younger age, that physical preparation as well will help massively, you know.
So in your first senior managerial job, you obviously came from a very successful period as an assistant manager. Now that you are the main man, what do you like in your staff, your assistants, your S&Cs? What are you really looking for in terms of your people?
I like them to know their job, like, you know what I mean, the S&C, you know, coaches, like, you know, to be able to tell me, look, this is what I feel is important for the players to be working on. So like to be confident in their own ability and to be able to, you know, lead me and guide the players, like especially in the S&C and our physios and stuff like that. So you know they're leading, you know, me and give me an understanding of what's important for the players. Like my assistant manager, like Alan Murphy, has just been phenomenal. He played in the league. He actually played for our director of football, so he's just an unbelievable football brain, sees things, you know, in the moment, sees the individual player, like breaks down their movements, you know. It's like, so having a player who's played the game at the highest level in the country, like, is just, it's brilliant. Like it's like working with Damien, like, you know. So that's important, and they don't always agree with you, like, you know what I mean, and that they're strong, and you know, obviously, like if you make a decision, you make a decision, but that they're giving you other alternatives to scenarios, and they're, you know, say at the start the session when we're working on the session, and they're giving you a progression to the session. They're saying, well, maybe if we do this like there tonight, you know, Alan gave me some direction on where the ball should begin, for example, because that was going to be more realistic to the opposition who will play at the weekend. You know, so things like that where they're, you know, they understand the game and they're comfortable in, you know, in their own skin, and they're able to deliver their opinion to you, you know, and be strong in their opinion, like, you know. So
detail oriented, little tweaks here and there.
Yeah, and those little detail changes can massively change a training session, you know, massively. Like last week we were playing in the cup and we were working on breaking down a low block, like, and there was a couple of things that Alan added to the session, and it was just like, it just helped the flow, you know, that bit cleaner, and it made things it painted clearer pictures for the players, you know. So it was even little things like where they were setting the defenders up, like, so there was a line across 5 yards up from the 18-yard box, and they couldn't go beyond. So like we were saying, like, you know, play off that line and giving them a guide, but they were stepping out and they were kind of, it wasn't realistic, like, so it was like just load of flats along 5 yards out, don't go beyond that line, and then it was really clear.
Yeah,
it was just a simple thing, like, you know. But it actually came to pass in the game at the weekend, you know.
Yeah, nothing better, isn't there? No, and then it swings. But even for player buy-in too, when the player sees the session that's worked on, the result that comes from it, and they actually paint the picture in sessions, they see the picture in games, trust comes so quickly when you see that, you know. Vital.
Yeah, what we're looking for then is feedback from the players, like, and them to be also driving the bus as well, like. So you know, what do you see? You know, say for example at half time, like what's going well? You know, what's working? What have we worked on that's working today? What's not working well? How do you see us fixing it? Like, and kind of handing ownership over to them, because you know yourself, you can go in half time and you're like 3 coaching points. Get me 3 coaching points over, and you know your 90 seconds, 2 minutes become 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and all of a sudden they're knocking on the door. Like. So you know, because ultimately it's the match day it's over to them, like, you know. So that's, you know, allowing them the freedom to be able to speak their mind and say what they're, you know, it's not just you speaking all the time, or it's not the assistant manager or the coach speaking all the time.
It's funny that, because the more like annoyed you are going into half time, the more you speak. 100%. I was only thinking about that just there. It's just like you're on the 3 coaching points. That's a tough one to stick to sometimes.
Yeah, because the 3, yeah, and then because they could break down into sub points, and like I found like writing them down, even because a lot of the players are visual, like, so that like, cause it's a lonely place at times half time for a player, because they can feel like that, oh, I've been the one that's giving the ball away. So all of a sudden they're sitting there and they're not listening to what you're saying, because it's panic, like. You know, we played our first game in Dalymount, and it was like 933 people at the match.
Jeez, was there?
Yeah.
Gee, I missed that stat. That's great.
Yeah, and it's like it was unbelievable, but I didn't take into account that day like nerves. You know, I didn't take into account that day players hadn't taken a corner from the Des Kelly side and walking across the pitch, the distance from the you know, and they're the things that are massive on match day.
They are, yeah.
So you get 2 or 3 set pieces, and all of a sudden delivery isn't right because you've been working on an astro pitch.
Yeah.
You know, and like, so there are things that we've kind of tweaked as a staff with the players and said, listen, I got that wrong. I should have let you practice a couple of corners on each side, the 2 set piece takers. So given that freedom for them to say, I want to take a couple of corners, like, not
in pre-match,
yeah, so like allowing them to, you know, say what they feel is important and what they need to work on, you know, especially on match day. Like. So like coming in saying, look, I missed that, I should have, you know, but, you know, let me know, like, if we're not doing something that you feel you need to prepare a little bit better in, let us know. Like. So like that was a great learning curve, that first match in Dalymount, like, you know.
It's funny because warm-ups are so they're like the one thing that if you see someone doing something non-conventional, you're like, what are they doing? Like I seen Porto were playing Arsenal in the Champions League, and they were defending corners in the warm-up and defending balls across. So they were literally set up, whipping balls in the box, clearing them, and everyone's like, why are they doing that? But then like Arsenal are one of the best set-piece attacking teams in the Premier League, to be honest, at the minute. So it's interesting because every warm-up just seems to be right. Dynamics, passing pattern. Everyone seems to do the exact same possession. Like there's nothing out of convention. A little bit of finishing for strikers and centre half. Whereas someone might see someone taking the corner and be like, "That's a bit why they're practicing the corner there." But you forget about the psychological impact of potentially playing in front of a big crowd for the first time, even where the corner's being taken. Because depending on where the way the stadium is, where are you walking over to the crowd? Are you walking across all the fans? But it's funny when you go away from convention in a warm up, it's kind of judged quite a lot, which is interesting, I think.
Yeah, it's like, as I said to you, it's getting a sense of the players' needs on match day. What do they need? Now, that's something that, you know, you're learning as you go, like, you know.
Did the players say to you about that, or did you kind of cop it, or did one of your staff cop it?
No, our goalkeeper coach Dave Henderson, who's just phenomenal, like, you know, he's just unbelievable, like, and just sees these things. And you know, we were talking about just certain things we hadn't kind of practiced, or sorry, certain things we had practiced that we didn't kind of, you know, get right on match day. And we got a couple of set pieces, like, and Dave was like, look, it's the first time that girl's ever taken a corner from over there. You know what I mean? The distance is different. There's a hill and little things like that, and you go, shit, like, I missed that. You know. And they're talking about like the nerves, 993 people, first time they played in Dalymount, walking over to the fans, knowing their family are there and their parents are there. And they're things that you just take for granted like that. Their players are going to be okay with that, like, you know, and they're not. You have to actually prepare for that. And like, it's funny, like, you know, when you're seeing like Arsenal playing You'll Never Walk Alone, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and then the time counting down and stuff like that, and different things like Porto practicing defending corners. They're things that, you know, that might be the difference between winning and losing a game.
That's funny, when Arteta done that, he was like, social media kinda didn't work, you still lost anyway. But it's funny, if they had won, it would have been like, oh, it's funny, if you win it works, if you lose it's useless. It's funny, just because we kind of jumped into the Bows kind of time there. What was the big reason or decision for moving on from Athlone? So you obviously done the short stint in Athlone as an assistant. Did you kind of get the bug for it then? And why jump into to manage straight after?
I probably thought it was like, there was obviously it was an honour to be asked, like, for people to feel that you can do the role. So when someone's asked me to meet you, to consider you for a role like that, and like, there's only 11 managers' jobs in the league, so it was just, and it's such a big club, and I was only when I got into the club and seen the inner workings of the club, you realise how big it is, how invested it is in the community. No, it's like, it genuinely is. It's such a massive club, and they do so much in so many areas, like, to help, you know, different strands of the community. Like. So I kind of be a tactile person. I wanted to go down and see the venue, and, you know, get a sense of like, where would we be training, and, you know, went into the offices, you know. So once I got kind of a real sense of what it was going to look like, and kind of thought about who would be the staff, and, you know, I was thinking about, you know, them players, and it's the off season, and I considered a lot of things, and then, but just like the fact that it was a manager's job, and there's only 11 of them, you know, in the league. So it was just too, and I felt I'd managed with Shells, and I'd kind of like an assistant role with Dave Mangle at Shells as well, with the boys. But it was very much with Dave and myself. We were very much aligned, very much aligned with Ciaran and myself. And then I feel the same with Alan now. Like, and it was just the right thing. It was the right time as well. Like, you know. And obviously I live in Dublin, and it's in Dublin. Yeah, you know, I've 4 kids. Like, so it was I was going to Athlone, and I was getting home at 11. You know, so it was a huge commitment, like, you know. But it was brilliant. It was one of the best things I've ever done in football. Brilliant club, meant so much to the community when they won the cup. Like, it was fantastic.
What is it like having, or what have kids taught you about people management? And I know you have 2 daughters as well, you mentioned. So, like, what little skills have you picked up with having kids? Well, how does that relate to working with senior players?
How does it relate? It's like, I just find when you're working with kids, that, you know, they want to learn. They generally want to improve what they're doing with the boys anyway. With the boys, they want to learn and they want to improve. With girls, it's a little bit different. Girls, I've found, they need to fit in to the group before they can perform in the group. So there's a little bit of a difference between coaching girls and coaching boys for me. That would be the biggest thing. But coaching younger players, once you're kind of creating an environment that players are bouncing into, I think, you know, that's the key to it, whether it's seniors or younger players, like, you know. And I like the idea of the players never knowing what you're going to do in the training sessions, like, as in what practices you're doing. So I find, like, once they're, you know, going into the practices that they know they're going to enjoy and going to be challenged in, I think at underage or senior level, it's, you know, it's as enjoyable for a younger player as a senior player. And I think it has to be like that. Like, whether you're, you know, there's obviously, I'm coaching senior women, but there's not like there's not huge wages, like, you know, and so they have to go in and enjoy their, you know, their time. You know, it has to be enjoyable.
And I think finally, before we wrap it up, when it comes to this season, obviously we've just kicked in. You guys have had a great start. what are the main outcomes that you're looking to drive this year? Like obviously a league title would be great, a cup would be great, all that sort of good stuff. But you know, what are the real outcomes that you're looking to drive in this first year of management with a new club?
Like obviously we have an unbelievable setup. Like we're working in DCU, so that the facilities are incredible, and I would say they're second to none from, you know, traveling around and visiting clubs and stuff like that. So we want to create that kind of high performance environment for young female footballers and senior footballers alike. So I suppose putting in foundations to build on and become a senior women's team that's competitive season in, season out, and it's not just a one-off in talent. Like, so they're like continuously being, you know, challenging for everything, you know, over the course of the next, you know, 2 or 3 seasons. Like, you know, but obviously this season is, you know, is building that kind of understanding and the perception of the club and how you'll be looked after when you come in as a player. So obviously we're looking to sign, you know, young up and coming talented players, but you know, you need role models as well, like, you know. So we've got some brilliant role models for the younger players in the club already. Our captain and our vice captain and some of the players we've signed. So just kind of building on that, you know, from the senior women's side of things, like, you know. So that would be the thing, building that kind of culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Sounds amazing to me. Yeah. Other than that, I think you guys have a game against, is it the Palestine women as well?
Yeah.
One of the note stacks. There's only something I heard about through social media. I'm guessing there'll be a good crowd at that. Right?
Yeah.
About that game as well.
Yeah. So we're playing them on the 15th of May, and it's you know, it's going to be brilliant to have the senior team, the senior Palestinian team coming over, and for our players to play them, and obviously, you know, help with the cause that's rolling in behind that, you know. So,
yeah, tickets can be got on Bowls.ie or Bowls.
Yeah.
Bowls.ie?
Yeah, Bowls.
Just Bowls.
Is it not Bowls? BOHS? I think it is, and the abbreviation.
Without Bowls.ie.
But typically a one URL.
I bet you 250 or something.
250.
€2.50.
Now, what I'm going to shake to hear is that the official URL is like Bohemian Football Club. But if you put in Bowls...
No. You said Bowls.ie. You said that's the URL. That is the URL.
You're not listening to me.
You're wrong.
You can have URLs embedded under a main one. So my theory is that if you put in Bowls.ie...
He's such a technicality.
It'll be sold out, that's the main thing.
yeah.
That's the main
I won't
thing.
even get any tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even listen to me anyways. Don't be going Googling it now. The house some arsehole is out there.
I'm Googling it, I have it here. Paddy Cork looking back at me.
Paddy character.
What are you looking at?
Is it Bowls.ie?
What's the
It's just
URL?
BohemianFC.com.
Alright. 250.
.com as well.
250.
Global.
250.
€2.50.
250.
Can of Monster. That was some segue. Ken, thanks for your time. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
And obviously best of luck for the remainder of the season.
You too.
Nice.
Thanks, lads. Thanks for having me.